everyone, and thank you, Brian Pichman, for being here to talk about space planning, something that we are probably all doing now that things are changing so much in libraries, maker spaces, more programming, things like that. Brian is the Director of Strategic Innovation for the Evolve project. He loves to share his knowledge, and he is dedicated to bringing libraries into the future using cost-effective measures and strategies. Much of Evolve's work includes helping libraries bridge the digital divide and break away from traditional library views. Very happy to have Brian here today. Welcome, Brian.
Yep, thanks everybody. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If my audio breaks, I apologize. I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi network, so we'll see how well this goes. I tested it a few times. If it breaks up, feel free to type in the chat box, or if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. So today we're talking about designing interactive learning spaces. When we're talking about design or building new ideas, there's always a certain amount of risk, and in order to be successful, you have to take those risks and try something out. What I find is if librarians call it a pilot program or a beta test, it usually goes over really well with the board because they're like, oh, we want to be involved in a pilot program. So sometimes just calling it something different usually sells pretty well. The other thing to keep in mind that it's okay to fail. When we're talking about interactive tech and maker spaces, chances are, even if you already have one and you're trying to get a new piece of technology to work right, it's okay if you can't figure it out. You're not supposed to know everything. And so while we take risks today and learning new things, or if you're trying to implement, you're going to fail. You're going to fail if you're playing with some new tech or a new gadget, but that's part of the learning experience. Don't get discouraged. So I'll give a quick little background about what I do. I used to work at a public library, and we did a renovation project. And it took us about 3 months to completely renovate the children's library, and we did it with a budget of $165,000, which isn't too much. We were told it would cost $500,000 to renovate our children's section. And the way we did it was we worked very hard on partnering with different startup companies, and I'm going to talk about how to do that today as well in terms of designing your space and what to include in your space. So that brings up, why do we have these conversations? Why should we be looking at redesigning our space or retooling our space to be more interactive and engaging? And so the Pew Research Center did all these surveys about, what's important to libraries. Should there be hands-on components? Should there be more of an interactive experience? And what's going on? Should we learn new tech and new apps? And they surveyed all these people, and it was an overwhelming response of people interested or somewhat interested in learning that in their library space. The other thing that I use as a tool to prove that it's important to renovate or rebuild is when we're talking about the value of libraries. Pew Research did another survey where they surveyed people the frequency of library usage within a year. 53% of those individuals said, yes, I use the library in the last 12 months, and 91% say the library is important. So then you have to ask yourself, if the library is important to your community, why aren't you visiting? So the purpose of today is to give them a reason to visit. And I like to share stories a lot, and so today I'm going to probably share a ton of stories with you of what people said while I go travel out at an event. One time there was a taxi driver that I was telling him I was giving a conference on interactive tech, and he was very confused that this library was even doing it, let alone he was surprised that libraries had computers or even Wi-Fi, and he was just completely amazed. So we need to do a really good job in outreaching. So in terms of designing our space, at the core, in order to get that 38% of people we're missing, or 38% of those people that aren't coming into our library, we need to expand our value. We can all admit that we can no longer be just about books. I like to tell people that we should be creating stories in our library spaces versus just providing them. And one of my favorite quotes was, we need to move away from the grocery store model and move into the kitchen model where people come into the library to collaborate and interact with people and build new experiences. And so the concept of, if you build it, they will come, comes into play. So what does space system technology have to have? So when you're looking at redesigning your space or adding technology or interactive components to your space, I base it off of 5 pillars. I'm going to go through those. And these slides are shareable. I think I'll email them to Shelly and she can pass them out or whatnot. So you don't have to take notes on everything. The PowerPoints are shared. So the first is creation and inventions. When you're talking about tech and when you're talking about space, you want to make sure that people have the ability to create and invent and express themselves. It's unfortunate that in our world today that most people look down upon failure. So inside of a school curriculum, if you're a programmer or an artist and you want to learn about programming, you necessarily can't go take a programming class, because if you fail, then you'll get a bad grade and you wasted your money. Mom and dad are mad, whatever it may be. So when you're talking about space, you want to allow and encourage the ability to create and invent. The picture you see is from Oak Park Library in Illinois. They took a corkboard and they used golf tees, like you would at like a miniature golf course, and made a giant light bright pegboard out of it. The other thing you want to do in your space is allow discovery. You want to allow people to experience the space and discover new things by every visit. Whether that's reorganizing your shelves every now and then, or rotating book collections, or even doing something as simple as letting children view the book by their cover and putting the covers out so they can flip through them. They say that by doing this simple showing the book's cover, you can increase circulation by at least 38% and upwards to a couple 100%. Collaboration is another important piece. When we're talking about technology or our spaces in general, they have to be collaborative. Most group assignments and most business ideas and everything that people come up with isn't done in a silo. It's done collaboratively, so people come together and they build new ideas and work together. Technology, for instance, people collaborate naturally with it because you have to. There's usually some multi-use component. So the picture you see is a smart table. We're up to 8 people and 100 fingertips. I'm not sure where they got the math on it. Can play at once. The other piece is interaction. You want your space and technology to be interactive. You want people to be able to move in the space and interact with the space and learn from it. This is really, really important when we're talking about maker spaces. We can't have things locked away and in boxes because people won't be able to interact. And last is innovation. You want to have something innovative, and you want to kind of encourage that innovation mentality. They say that innovation has to be an original disruptive act, meaning if you're not offending someone, you're not innovating, is what they say. So the picture you see here are sound eggs in which people can sit and listen to music without anyone hearing it. It's semi-soundproof, so it muffles noise from inside the egg. And it doesn't really, so you can do playaways, you can read books, you can listen to music, play video games, and your neighbors won't really hear you. So a whole bunch of innovative ideas. And so if you see something that some other library is doing, or a makerspace in general, and you're like, wow, that looks really cool, I encourage you to take it and customize it and make it your own. So when we're talking about key design concepts, I break it down into 5 different pillars: adding color, art, open spaces, movable furniture, and of course technology. So when we're talking about our design, the most inexpensive and the most wow factor for the most part is simply adding color to your library space. A lot of libraries or not a lot, but there's quite a bit of libraries that have white walls everywhere. And if you're thinking of, for instance, a children's section, white walls isn't really enticing. We don't go to a park and we just see, beige slides. We see bright reds and bright blues because they're welcoming and they're an engaging color. And then when you think of study rooms and nurseries and stuff, people choose different colors to help them either focus or calm, build new ideas. So painting is really inexpensive, and I encourage you to have fun with it. Use bold colors. Depending on your library organization, sometimes you can have the staff paint for you. As long as you're not part of a union, you can have people painting. And that's what we ended up doing as our library. Me, a page, and the building engineer painted the whole library, and it saved us a ton of money. But color alone can make your space bigger and brighter. So here's an image of our library space after we were completed. We used bright, fun colors that drew you in. And if you can tell in the picture, we're in a basement, so we can't really expand out. So this comes into a story. So in the last picture, in this picture here, you see like an archway. We had a paper tarp draped, so people couldn't see what we were working on. And at the time, we didn't add any tech. We just moved furniture away from the wall so we could paint. And the children were ripping holes into the tarp to see what we were working on. And we just added color. We didn't tell them what else we're doing, and they thought the library space got bigger. They're like, wow, the library is so much bigger now. They also thought that they had to get in line for the grand opening. They asked, how many days in advance should I get here for the grand opening? Because I want to be the first to see it. We have never seen the excitement of somebody coming into a library, let alone waiting outside to see the grand opening. And so it was a really cool and powerful message, letting us know that even simply by changing the color of our space, we were really amping up the patrons. The second piece is art. Have your patrons create the art. Your community is chock full of artists and upcoming artists, and allow them to donate their sculptures, their paintings, their photographs to the library, and that way the library becomes their home. They say that by allowing somebody to post their work or share their work, it gives them that sense of self-publication. So the patrons, especially the younger ones, will tell their moms, their dads, their friends, family friends to come to the library and check out their artwork that's on display, because they have that sense of pride and ownership. The other piece is open areas. Have open space. People want open space for seating, to come together, work on a project, meet people. I encourage you to remove or repurpose rooms that are only used for one specific event or specific functions. So in the library I used to work at, we had a boardroom, and it was only used for board meetings once a month. We had another room for activity hour that was used twice a day, and the rest of the time it was closed. And so we put a value proposition together saying, why don't we just run story hour in intervals of every couple of hours? That way people don't have to be restrained by a time constraint. And anyone, grandma and grandpa, can even take somebody in during the middle of the day or in the evening to the library space. But having these large open areas allows your patrons, or even you, to rearrange your space for big activities. So let's say you wanted to do miniature golf in your library. It's really easy to move some furniture out of the way to put a golf course in, or an RC car event. And the other piece is letting community define the space. So if somebody moves stuff around, just keep it where they moved it. I used to work at a university where we did a redesign at the college, and the students were rearranging the furniture. It was the same group of students every day. We're moving furniture from one side of the building to the other, and getting in a big group and all working on some project. And every single night, the librarians moved all the furniture back to where it used to be. It took another librarian to ask them, hey, why do you guys torture us this way? Those furniture doesn't belong there. And they're like, well, we actually are working in a really big group project, and there wasn't enough seating where we like to sit. So that's why we're moving the furniture. And simply by us then letting them keep the furniture where it's at, it added a whole bunch of value, and then they bragged to all their friends that the university allowed them to define the space, and that made them, they said they felt safer in the library then, because they were able to define and build the environment in which they were able to be productive in. So here's an example of a space that has open spaces, and these chairs that you see, oh cool, I can write. The chairs and tables you see were easily lifted and moved and rearranged, allowing for, we did laser tag in our library. And so we really want people to feel comfortable and define and grow in the space. And here's another view. So when we're talking about furniture, I encourage you to use fun, bright colors, just like our walls, because it's attractive and people are drawn to it because it stands out. And obviously use lightweight furniture so it's easy to move, so your patrons can define the space and make it their own. But that always leads to a follow-up question. People go, well, Brian, unfortunately our money tree isn't growing as well. Where do we come up with the funds to do this? In terms of just furniture, there's local areas that are actual maker spaces where people pay almost like a gym membership to attend. And in these gyms, people are making couches, chairs, etc., and they're just making to make because that's what they like doing. They're hobbyists. So reach out to these groups and say, hey, would you be willing to make us customized furniture? And in exchange, we'll pay for the materials. And it's a win-win for everybody. The hobbyists get a chance to, perfect their hobby. The library gets some really cool custom furniture. Then all those individuals that helped create the furniture are going to tell their friends and family to check out the library, to check out the couch they made. So it's this whole, revolving door of excitement and sharing of stories. The other piece is doing community outreach. Simply by asking your community, people will help you. And there's no excuse not to try. There's a rural library down in Illinois, down far south, that just wanted couches for their teen service area, and they couldn't even put together like a couple $100 for it. So I said, well, why don't we do a 50 for 50 campaign? Let's call 50 libraries, or not 50 libraries, 50 businesses, and ask for $50. It's probably not going to hurt the bank of those businesses, and they get the tax write-off and stuff. What happened was around the 9th or 10th call, they called an individual that was overly excited. The library asked him to donate to the library, and he's like, "Oh, I love the library. I go there all the time. I have young teens. This would be such a cool place if you guys get couches for them. How much money do you actually need?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we need $2,500." So he wrote them a full check, $2,500, right then and there, for the couches, because no one has ever asked him for donations, and he loves the library, and this was his opportunity to give back. So in all sincerity, there shouldn't be any roadblocks to accomplishing your goals. The other piece is modularity. Allow your furniture to be modular and changed and moved and rotated. Don't need to fasten furniture to the floor. No one's planning on stealing your circulation desk anytime soon. One of the other things that people bring up when they're talking about their library space is that they should do raised flooring, or the concept of raised flooring, which is elevating the floor up by a couple inches so you can run network cables and power whenever you need it and wherever you need it without having to jackhammer the flooring or punch holes in walls. It's a grid that you can just pop stuff into. It works really well, and it's come down in price over the years. Idea Paint's another really cool resource where you can turn your walls or any flat surface into a whiteboard. Really great for collaborating on new ideas or building like a brainstorming dump. So let's talk about Fab Labs and maker spaces or interactive spaces. What does all that mean? What's this mumbo jumbo that people constantly talk about? At the core, it's just a space for people with common interests to come together and make or build or even socialize. And it doesn't have to be, a multi-million-dollar place with fancy computers or tablets and giant TV screens. It could be as simple as a card table with notebooks that allow people to come together and talk and strategize. Or it's also considered like a community center where people come together and work. But what we wanted to put together at our library was something that combined playgrounds, schools, and museums all into one aspect. So it has the fun of a playground, the interaction of a museum, and the educational components of a school, and put it all into one. So there's 3 ways you can accomplish that. By building a collaborative area, providing tools, or just being a training center, like giving out workshops. So one library, super low cost, they put a table together that says, what will you make today? And they have different components out on the table every week where people can come in, play, and make. Very simple, low budget, interactive, and they made people want to return to the library once a week. Or they can be actual spaces where somebody comes in and they're making art, and then they display it on the outside of their art wall. This is in Chicago. The other piece is building a lab or something with tools. People are really into making movies or music, depending on your community, music, video, graphic design, video editing, etc. So putting a space together to do that, yeah, it's expensive, but it also has a lot of payouts. If you think about the attractiveness of independent film festivals or independent music festivals where people from all over the world travel to share in making music or making a new movie or in advertising it and winning awards. It's a really cool ecosystem watching all that unfold, and there's a lot of passion behind it. So putting something like that in your library can ultimately generate revenue. If somebody's movie goes big and you go, hey, we helped you make it. We're going to try to expand our space. Can you help us out? And there's this whole, again, this community aspect. The other piece is programming. There's a huge demand for programmers now. And so by allowing your space to something as simple as coming down and programming a game on a tablet and letting people learn how to program is hugely important. And then obviously the whole 3D printing phase, where people want to come in and print things in 3D and manipulate objects and see what they look like. I'm going to tell you a hint. Going to Thingiverse and printing whatever files you see isn't considered making. That's called printing. So I would encourage you, if you have a 3D printer and people like just going to Thingiverse and print, challenge them. Say, hey, how can you make the octopus arms larger? And let them figure that out and tinker with it and see if they can print it. Here's a picture of a library in Florida that took a hallway and they made different stations, like cubicle areas where people can print, do woodworking, etc. The other piece is doing multimedia rooms. So for like presentations or movie nights with smart boards and interactive boards that you can talk to and draft out ideas. So this would be an example of a smart board, like a touchscreen surface. So what is this making stuff anyway? I'm going to start going a little bit quicker to get through some more ideas and topics. And then at any point in time, again, feel free to interrupt, or at the end, I'll leave my contact info, and we can kind of dive more into it. I'm going to give you a lot of info today. So what is making? Coherent, like in current state, in current state, making is people coming together and creating. Everyone knows what Legos are. People from all over the world know what Lego pieces are, and from kids to adults, playing with Legos can solve different problems. For children, it solves problem solving. So how do we build something and how do we create something? For adults, it's really good at getting different apartments together that necessarily don't get along, because there's a huge collaborative effort behind building Legos as a group. So photography. Your library can do photography studios, taking photos, and again, sharing those photos with the community. I've seen libraries do knitting clubs and sewable circuits. Did you know you can actually sew conductive material into your clothing? And you can make a GPS jacket. So if you're walking around and you have your maps going on and it tells you to turn right, you can program them to vibrate your right shoulder, letting you know it's time to turn right. Or music, letting people play music in the library and sharing their collection or sharing what they make into the collection. I've seen libraries host baking classes and have pots and pans available so people can make and create food, and then they donate that food to pantries or even do like cook-offs in the library space. Even electricity. People are really interested in making things turn on and how does circuits work and what's it like to be an engineer and putting hardware together. Then we have robotics. How do we get people involved in robots? So libraries and makerspaces have piles of different robot pieces or different actual robots where people come together and play and interact. Or coding, as I stated before. I really think there's a huge value to learning how to code. They say that coding is the new gateway to the future. If you think about all the technological advances we've had over the years, we haven't had any. And you can say, well, Brian, what about self-driving cars? Those are just a bunch of sensors we've had for 30, 40 years, and it took a programmer to program them to work together. Same with smartphones, same with Google Glass or Microsoft HoloLens. Everything we have now is just a variety of sensors, just recoded And so coding is huge. So getting things to talk differently is what's shaping the world we live in. Sorry, I'm slightly losing my voice. Membership makerspaces is another component that I encourage you to check out when you're talking about designing your library. So there's local areas that have actual makerspaces, and I would encourage you to visit them and find out what they seem, what's the community seems to like, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And chances are they'll probably even help you build yours or run makerspace events at your library. All you got to do is ask. If you're going to ALA, I encourage you to check out Pumping Station 1. It's in downtown Chicago. They have a whole bunch of really neat robotic pieces and robotic parts. Just say you're a library, you're at the conference, and you want to check what they're doing, and they'll probably let you in. New York City Resistor is very similar, but they do something that I think we as librarians should look into doing. What they do is they'll take a box of circuits and they'll go to a Starbucks or a train station and set all these circuits up and then ask complete strangers if they could like to help solve a problem. So they'll be like, why won't my light switch turn on? Let's figure this out together. And people randomly are working with them to figure out why won't the lights turn on. And then they're sharing this dialogue of what they do and how they want to get people to be more interested in electricity and engineering. And then that draws them to their makerspace. A really cool interactive library is located in the Netherlands called the Doc Lab. Check them out. They basically took a warehouse and they renovated it to be a very interactive library, to the point of there's tables where you put your library card down and it reads and detects what it's a library card, and you can see your books on hold, books you've checked out, etc. So some food for thought. When you're talking about your maker library, you don't have to have a dedicated space. You don't have to have a giant room or whatnot to be considered a makerspace. So you can share resources across other libraries. So let's say if a bunch of your libraries got together and say, hey, why don't we just share resources and pass it around, and then that way you don't have to have a place to store it, and someone's always using it. The other thing, we're going to talk about tech in a little bit. You don't have to buy all the latest and greatest. There's no need. I encourage you, don't do that. Start off small and grow from there. So get a couple things, see how they work, see if people like them. And the most important is you don't have to have experts. Not all of us are coders. Not all of us are engineers or have that type of background. But what we are good at is finding answers and researching things and helping people. So why don't we just use that as our strength? And if we are an expert in something, take that expert life away and allow people to fail and work things out, and just be there for when they need coaching or if they need somebody to pick them up and help them carry on. So, and that kind of leads me into my next topic. A space can have all this really cool tech. And you can spend billions of dollars on making the greatest place in the world. But unfortunately, if you don't have the right people in place, it's going to fail. So they say that a space needs people. And it was actually only recently I found out that the Village People I thought it was a TV show my whole life. But I recently found out it was actually a musical group. So life-changing.
Ryan, are you there?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
You can? Okay.
Are you able to hear me still?
Evidently, some people can hear you, and I couldn't. So keep going.
Oh, all right. Sorry about that, everyone. If you still can't, let me know. I'll unplug and replug. So a space needs people. So by ensuring you have the right team in place is pivotal to your makerspace and you're designing your library. And I've seen spaces fail because there aren't people in place that want to help people grow. So we're talking about people. I'm assuming all of you here are risk takers, you're rule breakers within reason, you have passion, you have drive, because you're taking time out of your already busy workday to spend 4 hours with me it's an hour, to spend 4 hours with me to build and talk about makerspaces. And so you have that passion and drive already, and so I encourage you to share that with your team, your fellow coworkers, your staff. And then in terms of your staff, have positive and motivated individuals. You want people that are more interested in checking out just books. Like they're the ones that come into work every day going, what else can I do? Those are the ones you want to have. I encourage you to do a skills assessment. Find out what skills people have, what hobbies your staff have, and incorporate that into your makerspace. You'll be surprised who's on your staff is incredibly talented in hobby type things or maker things, and utilize their skills and make them wear badges so everyone knows who they are. And the last piece, and we sometimes forget this, reach out to our community. We know what our patrons want, but we might not know what they can do. So identify with them. Which patrons have which skills? We actually found out one of our library patrons when I worked at the library was a former owner of a fishing store called Shamo, and they sell fishing gear. And he was so excited when we asked him to do a fishing program. He donated like couple $100 worth of fishing reels, fishing lures, fishing gear, t-shirts, everything, because he was super excited to share his passion fishing to the community. And he did it for free. There's other things that your community can teach. Cooking, how to build. I saw a library in Illinois do how to do boat building. The one where you have to like burn out the wood and then you scrub it and you peel it. Building computers is another one. Circuits, robotics, all of this you can have your community teach for you in your library space. And so you don't have to go out and hire a presenter that's a boat building expert. See if anyone in your community is able to do it, to share their love and passion. So now let's get to interactive technology. Fill the space with fun interactive technology and allow people to check things out. So if you have really cool tech, let people take it home and continue learning from it. Before we get into a couple slides on technology, why should we have it? And this goes into why should we have a makerspace or an interactive space? The one thing we can do is offer a safe to fail environment. Like I stated earlier, we don't have a space where you can take a risk on something and see if you like it. But you as a library can offer that. The other piece is it's a gateway to new ideas. And we've done this so many times with our collection, with our materials. We're taking people to other locations while they're reading a book. But we can also spark interest in other fields. So showing them what a circuit looks like, they might go, what is that? That looks cool. I want to be an engineer now. There's a really cool story I like sharing when I was in Colorado once. I was demoing a product called Little Bits out in the lobby with some librarians. And these two little girls came up with their parents, and they wanted to know what it was. And I explained to them, oh, these are called Little Bits. This is how you put things together. This is what a circuit is. And they started getting along. Our parents were surprised because I guess they fight over every toy they have. And this toy in particular, they were solving each other's problems. The one girl couldn't figure out why her switch wouldn't activate the light. And her sister goes, well, that's because you have too many switches in the way. You have to remove one. And they worked together to solve it. And I guess that they were there on vacation. So after the conference, I ran into them again. And they said, you know what our kid's favorite thing for this whole vacation we spent all this money on was the circuit guy. And now they can't stop talking about circuits and electricity. And they want to take apart the light switch when they get home to see how it works. And they were like 7 and 10. But that was a simple one-time interaction that caused them to want to learn more about how that all works. The other piece is providing new tools and resources. We're the pros at that. We are phenomenal at sharing what we have and disseminating it for everybody else. And so do that with technology. And my favorite piece is, what if we launch the next big startup? What if our library or the library you're at found somebody that was really interested in building a new idea and built it in your library space? How cool would that be? Then, let's say 10 years down the road, your library needs money for an expansion. Who should you ask for funds or donations? Probably that startup you helped launch. And they'd be more than willing to help out. So I'm going to go through a couple slides of different tech. We can circle back if you need, but I'm going to just flash a whole bunch of really cool tech at you. So this is called the empathy toy. It's a wooden block set that teaches you about empathy. The core component is two people are blindfolded. A third person builds a block set, gives it to one of the individuals. The other individual then explains to the other blindfolded person how to recreate the block set, both of which are completely blindfolded, so they have to use communication to do it. Sphero Ball is a robotic ball that you can program or simply drive around like an RC car. Dash and Dot are two adorable robots that communicate with each other or your apps, and so you can program them to move on their own, interact on their own, make noises, record audio, and it teaches you programming simply by dragging and dropping commands. Lego WeDo, very similar. It's you build a Lego with a motor in it, and you're able to program the motor to open and close, lights to turn on and off. There's distance sensors, motion sensors, and the app is really great because it kind of walks you through it. Lego Mindstorms is another great product that teaches you about robotics and programming. If you didn't like the Lego price, Vex Robotics is a great alternative. They allow you to even print out missing pieces and program them, and there's a controller that comes with it that you can then drive around and interact with. Another really cool product is Ozobot that teaches you programming by drawing. So by drawing different colors or different patterns of colors, you can make the robot do different things, whether that's drive faster, drive slower, do some spinning tricks, but it teaches you simply with markers, and by drawing on your paper, you can start coding, which is pretty phenomenal for people that are into art but not necessarily into computers. MeeperBot is a really cool app that lets you build a Lego. It's on wheels, and then you can zip your BattleBot, if you will, around and program it. Finch is a great product that plugs in through USB to your computer that teaches you how to program. And you can program light sensors, eyes, LEDs, motors, and you can teach it how to drive through a maze, for instance. Cubelets is also really great. It teaches you about robots, and each cube has a different function, whether that's a power function, a light, or a sensor, and you put them together and you can build interactive robots. So the company is Modular Robotics, and they make cubelets, and they also make Moss, which is a smaller version of the robot kit that lets you make a little bit more advanced robots that you can program with Bluetooth. Another great robot is Wink, and it's only like $50, and it teaches you about programming in such a way it's super easy to follow. So the gentleman that invented Wink, he was trying to teach his kids how to program, and he found out that there wasn't anything available online that was simple to follow. So this guy invented this character with LEDs. There's a light sensor. There's motors that make it move. It's taptic, so it can feel touch and movement. There's a line sensor underneath that can read lines, and you can program all these things. And he walks you through each chapter how to tweak into code and how to make things work. There's another great company called Little Robot Friends that will make, you can program this robot, and it's supposed to be a social robot where you would touch your robot and it would react differently. And you can program those reactions. So if you can, it's kind of hard to see, but oops, as I draw on the line, there's little sensors here, and here on each robot that you can program touches and movements and noises and lights and whatnots to be like a social robot. And the idea is you and your friends all have robots, and you program and they talk to each other, and you have like a party. This is Littlebits. Littlebits is probably pretty well known now among libraries. It allows you to learn about circuits. In order to make a circuit, you need three things: power, an input, which are the purple ones, and an output, which are the green ones. And you put them together and you can make switches and make things turn on and do prototyping. Light Up is another great toy. It teaches you about circuits, but there's also an augmented reality app and the picture got cropped, it looks like, but you would take a picture of your circuits and it'll tell you if you made it right or wrong and how to fix it, whether that's rotating a positive, negative terminal around. Makey Makey is a controller. So you build something in Scratch and you hook it up to Makey Makey and you can control it. Tiggly teaches you about counting, spelling, and shapes, and there's a variety of different apps to make that possible. Osmo has a bunch of really cool apps that teaches you everything from spelling to math to puzzles to physics to art. Hummingbird is a robotics kit and has all the bells and whistles from motors, gears, lights, sensors, etc., where you can make interactive robots, and it's geared for ages 13 and up. Cubeto is really cool. You can program a robot to move on its own without a computer. And then the picture here, you see these little blocks. The idea is you place blocks on this Cubeto board, and it sends the code to the robot, and the robot moves. And the robot's supposed to be like part of a story, and you're reading a book, and the robot has to travel, and you tell it how to travel. Hopscotch teaches you how to program. It's a free app. It's phenomenal. I would encourage you to check it out. This is Blockly and Scratch, and so it's dragging and dropping commands essentially to program. This is a 3Doodler. You can draw in 3D, so it teaches you about, it's an art thing, so drawing and designing things in three-dimensional space. Then when we're looking into the future, when we're talking about our design in our library, one of the things that are coming up more and more is gesture-based computing. So interacting with our environments using gestures. So this is a soccer ball that people can stand around and kick. And there's a projector in the ceiling. This is an interactive dog, and it detects if you fake throw something, the dog will disappear and come back, and you can like bend over and pretend you're giving it a treat, and it'll sit and wait anxiously. This is the interactive rainforest. There's a projector that shows this blue stream, and as individuals stand in the way of the stream breaks apart. And the idea is you want the stream to hit a wall, which then grows a tree. Then we have virtual reality that people are talking about. So this augmented reality space of interacting in another dimension, a virtual one, and interacting with it and learning from it. So touring France, for instance, in the HoloLens, or experiencing a 3D game with the Oculus Rift. So there's lots of ways we can engage in our space. Like I stated before with people, we have to engage our patrons in the library space in order to be successful. It has to be interactive. That's why I don't call it maker spaces. I call it a interactive space because you can't make anything if you're not interacting. So you can encourage people to build businesses, incubate ideas in your library space, create challenges, whether they're developmental projects like coding something for your library, or having people help you make your graphics for your upcoming programs and events, or even identify a problem in the community and determine how you're going to solve it. Host a startup weekend. If you've never heard of one, check it out. They're really cool. It's essentially 54 hours of brainstorming and building an idea and basically launching a company. If you've never been to a maker fair, check those out. There's a lot of really amazing people that attend. Pick up new ideas and bring those back to your library. If you're looking for websites to help you, Instructables is a great site. There's another one called makeitatatyourlibrary.org, which is library focused, and it's categorized and coded so you can actually filter ideas based off of like which age group you want, how much money you want to spend, how much time you want to spend getting it ready. Things not to do in your space. Don't have things locked up or hidden, because then no one will know what you have. I encourage you to take stuff out into your library floor and playing with it. Bringing stuff out on a random table and letting everyone know all the really amazing things you have. And you don't have to police it. Some other ideas to bring people in. Break and make, so take something apart and put it back together. Or UFOs, which is taking somebody's unfinished work and completing it, whether that's music, art, technology, hardware, etc., and like we talked about previously, doing like a showcase with music and stuff. Promotions. It's important to promote your space, and promoting your space will help you get more funding. I'm going to zip through these so we have time for questions. So social media is a great tool. Utilize it. Tweet out what you're working with, who you want to partner with. I tweet all the time in terms of getting new business ideas or new startups to work with me, and it works very, very well. People get donations if they tweet. We were at a conference once, and I challenged someone because they didn't believe me. So I said, well, why don't you tweet out and ask some company if they'd be willing to help, because she wanted this one startup's toy. I said, why don't you tweet and see what they say, and they actually ended up shipping her a free product. But social media is a lot about networking, sharing of ideas, and you have to have a strong network to be successful, because you want to share what people are doing in your space. It is a lot of hard work. You have to be on top of it and continue utilizing it, so it doesn't look like it's a dead end. So when people like check you out, they're like, oh, they only tweet when they need something. So make sure you're always contributing to conversations and stories. And now our favorite topic of the day, funding, because money's all over the place. So when I was talking about the library I used to work at, this was basically me. I wanted all the latest and greatest, but we didn't have the money to do so. So I had to figure out creative ways to get to that. And so I basically sold the idea that, hey, would you like to be involved in a library? We can showcase the cool tech you have for free. Would you like to be part of that? And people wanted to be. So I sold them the idea of being part of my makerspace. There's lots of things you can do to promote your space. I encourage you to develop a pitch. Do like 15, 30-second pitches and provide ROIs. And always never have a full-blown conversation on the first meeting. So always schedule a future meeting. So do your pitch. Say, hey, we have 20,000 users in our library space. I want to talk to you more about how you can help us out or how we can work together. Can we talk next week? It's almost like setting a date. You got to give them a date and time in order for them to commit. Be honest and remember you have a lot of power in choosing who you work with. We forget this a lot, but we actually have a ton of buying power because we do a really good job at exposing companies to new ideas. We're fantastic at delivering content, and it's also really good for community or for companies to do that community and charity support. The whole idea of giving back to the community. There's a talk done by Amanda Palmer called The Art of Asking. I encourage you to watch that. And she explains how it's so easy just to ask for help and how wonderful the world is because there's so many people that are willing to help. You just haven't asked them. And oftentimes you're going to have to negotiate and figure out, a win-win strategy where everyone's happy. So there's a ton of people you can ask for help. You don't have to do just patrons. You don't have to do local businesses. Call up Coca-Cola and see what they're willing to do. Or even local colleges and universities. If you're looking at building a website, for instance, ask the web design students, because part of their, at least in my school, part of the degree was you had to go out and develop a nonprofit or a community's website. But a lot of students couldn't find a place to let them make a site. And so the instructor said, well, we'll just make one up then. But that's an opportunity all these libraries could have had to have a really cool makerspace. And there's the whole crowdsource funding, so posting your idea on Kickstarter or Indiegogo and getting support that way. Asking for donations is easy. I always tell people to work up organizational charts. So if the sales manager says no, that's because he's a sales manager. Ask to speak to somebody in marketing. If marketing says no, ask to speak to someone in product development. And keep bouncing around until you find the person that's willing to go the extra mile. You will get a lot of no's. Don't get discouraged when you're talking about funding resources for your designing your space. Keep at it. Be positive. There's a lot of ways to save money. I encourage you to buy refurbished. It works really well and it doesn't harm anything. There's also discount sites to follow. Follow those. See what they post. And then TechSoup, if you've never heard of it, it's a really great organization that does amazing discounts on even like software and stuff. So wrapping up, what's next? What's the next thing you can do after you design your library space? What do you look for, and how do you continue to refine and reproduce? So again, the whole startup idea, What if you made your library a startup hub or an idea center? Wouldn't that be like the greatest accomplishment ever? Continue using the tools in your space, but most importantly, we need to get people into our space and be part of it and helping everybody learn to grow and interact. So sorry I had to speed up at the end there. I thought I had a little bit more time. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep.
I doubt you put anyone in.
Good.
If there's no questions, oh, someone's typing.
Awesome. And if you have questions in the future, feel free to email me, or if you want to take pictures of your library space and ask for ideas, I'm more than willing to reply and give you some hints or suggestions.
Well, thank you. I think there's more people saying thanks online here, so we won't sign off yet, but
That's fine.
very good.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, everyone, you will have gotten an evaluation form. You would fill that out, please. It's online. You would have it in your inbox. And Brian, I will share with you what they say.
Okay.
And thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome. It was a pleasure.